Hello. So it's been 4 weeks since we transferred the tomatoes into their indoor hydroponic buckets. I want to update you since this is going to be our first time watering them since the setup. You can see where their water level's at. I don't want it to go too low in the bucket, and I want to train their roots lower in the bucket. I started them at 1 EC. I just tested them and they're at about 1.1. And I want to bring them up, so I'm going to add only nutrient water since my nutrient solution tests out to around 2.2 EC. And we like to bring blooming and flowering plants up to 2.1 to 2.5. And we have some flower clusters on the tomatoes already. They're self-pollinating, so a light shake is enough. We're going to go through again today and take off any suckers because we want to keep them to one main stem, and any sun leaves that aren't getting good light because they're very overcrowded. And we're going to be wrapping them around their strings as they've gotten a little bigger. So if you have any questions, we put out an entire video of us setting them up from start to finish and defoliating, pruning, and stringing them up. And this is just going to be an update essentially on us watering them to what their EC gets to when we're done watering them and what they look like after pruning and defoliating them. So tomatoes are day neutral and they don't care what light schedule they get to flower, so we have them in the short cold day tent with a bunch of our other plants at around 75 degrees. So we have central air and the air conditioner, which I put a piece of cardboard up in between as a wall since I don't want to cause wind burn on the tomatoes. And most plants like around 70 degrees, which is going to be perfect for these tomatoes. So we don't change reservoirs, which is different than the industry does, but since the room is temperature controlled and I use reverse osmosis filtered water and I don't add any pH up or down, and my pH actually stays steady even in 2-3 year long plants, we're not going to be changing reservoirs, which is different than the industry does. So I just don't want to confuse anybody since I do different things than other hydroponic growers may do. So that just explains in the watering process that I don't change reservoirs and I just always top off with fresh water. And I believe that is perfectly fine. It's done well for all my plants as long as it's temperature controlled and no light is getting in. And depending on your water quality and where you live, if you're using tap water or reverse osmosis filtered water, you might get some different results. But I just find changing reservoirs tedious and inconvenient and kind of a waste of time if it's not completely necessary. So I'm not saying don't change your reservoirs, but I don't, and I just want to lead by example as well. And I know some people have a lot of questions about that, and they don't want to even get into hydroponics because of the fact that you have to change reservoirs. And when I was starting out, I didn't want to, and I still don't. So you can see we're going to be removing all suckers. They grow in between sun leaves and the main stem. You can see they grow at each point. We're going to be removing them all and then taking the string and wrapping the plant around a little better, or creating a loop with a different piece of string to keep it closer to the guideline that we want to have. But if I'm having trouble taking this plant and wrapping it around the cord and I don't want to bend it or fight with it too much, I can use these little twisty ties. It's good to go underneath a leaf node right there so that it doesn't slide upwards and end up hitting your tomatoes. I want to show examples of this at the end, but before I prune them off, I want to show how sun leaves down below like this are not getting light at all down there and are wasting energy on the plant. So we're going to take that off, and I'm going to go through and remove a bunch of them and then come back and show you guys what it looks like after we remove a bunch of leaves. So you can see how you can't even tell the difference after that. So that's what we're going for. So you don't need to remove an entire sun leaf, you can just remove portions of it. So this one's 2 stacked on top of each other, and some of these bottom leaves are still getting okay light, but up towards the tip they're just mashing into each other. So I'm going to remove the lower one, but keep portions of it still, right around here. So this is how much we defoliated today. Usually don't want to take off more than 30% of a plant. Hopefully they look a little different. We're going to go through and add that nutrient water now and test them and let you know what they're at and wrap them around their strings a little better. Regardless of what nutrient bundle you use, I highly recommend HydroGuard. This prevents root rot, and if you have any, decomposes any dead roots into stuff your plants can eat. It's a root bacillus. If you don't have HydroGuard and you want something similar, you could substitute it with hydrogen peroxide, and same thing, about 2 milliliters every time you water, and you kind of can't add too much, so I don't really measure anymore. I just poke these 2 little holes in the top. So I've already mixed up some nutrient solution and it's been settling. I like to let any excess soot settle to the bottom of the bucket. We used our scale and weighed it all out to the middle amount of each one. And I've shown this in detail in previous videos. I just like to reiterate it just because it's specific with not changing reservoirs, kind of what I do. And even these will tell you to change reservoirs. So I'm kind of going against what these even will tell you to do. But I like to wear a mask and gloves when I mix them up so I don't come in contact with any of the heavy metals or macros and micros. And I like to say that just so you can stay safe and don't come in contact with any of these. I want to experiment with compost teas and stuff in the future from worm castings and from compost. But for now, I like the powders because they store well and last a long time and are convenient and easy to use. They even can be mixed all together. I was watching a Veg Bloom documentary, and from what I understand, the people who created it were saying that you could mix these all together and create an all-in-one powder. They just have them separately so that you could blend your NPK differently if you want to, since these are different amounts of NPK listed at the bottom of each bottle. So they were saying that you could mix them all together and keep them in a baggie if you don't want to weigh them out each time, or if you had like RDWC and one large tank versus smaller tanks, since we're doing only 5-gallon buckets, we could have up to like a 50-gallon tank and mix that all up and have that stored in like a baggie, so when you go to make your tank, you have it all. So I just wanted to say that. I have some cracky plants that I substituted the HydroGuard for hydrogen peroxide, and they're working well. It's an option that keeps the bucket sterile if you don't want to use HydroGuard. It does kill root bacillus, and some of these nutrients have root bacillus in them, and HydroGuard is a root bacillus, so that's why you don't want to combine it with hydrogen peroxide. But it does work in keeping the environment sterile, and I notice it still works regardless. So I do recommend it if you don't want to get HydroGuard and you have trouble with root rot or keeping the environment sterile. So I use a spare plant bucket with an extendo hose. I elevate it with this table and let the soot settle to the bottom of the bucket because I don't want any excess soot getting into the plant bucket. And then I'm going to retest this when I'm done and show you what it's at. So I fill them up in between this black line, any higher, and it'll start to overflow. It took us 2 buckets of nutrient water, so 10 gallons of nutrient water to get them back full to the top. So they're full to the top. I just tested them and they tested out to 1.6 EC, which is kind of what I expected. I'll check back when we go to work on them and maintenance or water them again. We might have to again in around 2 to 3 weeks. And in that time, we're going to be picking off all suckers, wrapping them around the string. So hopefully we see you then. So as always, there will be a link down below to all the products we affiliate for. If you hover over in the bottom right hand corner, it'll show you a description of what we use each product for. We also have our Dyalla shirts that are going to be coming out again soon, along with our hoodies, so I'll throw them up on the screen. They're 100% organic cotton with no pesticides or insecticides in the growing process and are grown in an eco-friendly way. And I'm going to be putting out an entire separate video talking about the merch and the brand when we go to release them again. I just want to show you guys and wear them more before we launch them again.
Hey guys, we just wanted to show you the women's shirt. They have the purple birds instead of the blue ones. And this is the sleeve. Same thing, just purple. If you do end up getting one of these, just don't forget to tag us on Instagram and use the hashtag #DishToFlock. We really appreciate your guys' support and thank you. The hoodies are our favorite. We don't have that many in stock, but we'll be sharing with you guys the release date soon. These are all we have in stock, and every order will receive a thank you note signed by Jake and I.
For now, if you want, we have our hydroponic plants playlist. If this is on YouTube, it's somewhere on Facebook, but you can't click it. We have our subscribe for more if you want, or what YouTube thinks is best for you. Have a great day.